Hey guys, how's it going? This here's Tracilyn, and I am in Ruby Tuesdays, right here in York Commons, off of Interstate 75 in Dayton, Ohio. I'm going to sit down at a booth for just a couple of seconds, maybe a minute or two, to show you a place that I had the opportunity to sit down and speak to a gentleman that is supposedly known as Elvis Presley Jr. Through conversations with him and going to a couple shows back in 2011-ish, supposedly he was adopted out, and he was Elvis Presley's son. I don't want to go into the details of his life. However, I'm going to be sharing some insight of some things that I have been going through since working on my music project that I started in 2012 when I realized that I was being stalked and I was being monitored. Now the thing is, I don't know if it's with a chip. I don't know if it was something that was put in us at birth. And I already spoke about that in other videos. So I don't want to keep repeating things at this very spot. I realized that when these people were coming to speak to me while busking, that it had appeared to me like they were being messengers from a gentleman I met while down in Nashville by the name of Stephen C. Johnson. I consider this person to be an extremely dangerous person, and I want to send out warnings for anybody who does go down to Nashville to be aware that there are people who have access somehow to, I wouldn't say mind control so much as our thoughts, invading our brain. Nevertheless, while I was speaking with him, we got into conversations that maybe I'll reflect back on at some point, but there's some crucial points that are here, and one of them was the fact, while we were talking, he had mentioned that in our conversation, that she had left me. Okay? So in other words, this gentleman who supposedly was, I guess, a really good man for this woman, and the woman had left him. So what I'm getting at with this is the way that they talk, it gave me the thought inside my mind that he was referring to the situation where I walked out on a gentleman I met that I wrote down as Buffalo, New York, but it was actually Derby, New York. Because I realized that he was more into games. I want to share all this information because I don't know what the heck is going down, but with the details that I'll share you in a little bit, it may clear things up. Nevertheless, he had mentioned that here, and in the process of that as well, one of the other things that he had mentioned was that it was fun to watch. And this was in conversations of basically that I was going to be starting to work on my music. I didn't have a very clear mindset on the details as far as to what I was going to do with my music or how I was going to go about it. I just knew I wanted to do live performances and stuff. And when he had mentioned that, I was thinking to myself, you know, meaning when I post my stuff online or I go out and I do live performances, that it would be fun to watch. What I've come to and realize is that, in my opinion, I don't know if it's just Stephen C. Johnson. I don't know how many people are actually invading my privacy on a regular basis. I don't know exactly how it is that they're getting into my thoughts. But I do feel that as a transsexual woman, somebody who's extremely educated, somebody who has an extremely loving heart for God and for good things, though I stumble and fall. I feel that especially people who are of faith are under attack not by Satan so much as people who would rather see the masses of people in our country arguing and fighting over petty little stupid stuff. So that's why I'm sharing all this today. I'm going to go to another spot away from the restaurant. I know there's somebody else there. To share with you the other crucial part of what it was that I was conversating about was that during our conversation he had mentioned about it being fun to watch. And when these people talk to me, it's kind of the way that they look at me with their eyes. And it kind of relates into my mind and back into conversations I had with that Stephen C. Johnson. So I'm going to be leaving Ruby Tuesdays right now. So here we go. Ruby Tuesdays, Tracilyn, also known as... Okay, so I am now in front of Ruby Tuesdays. And here's the thing. After this supposed Elvis Jr. and I were done eating, I brought him out here to the parking lot, walked with him, and I showed him my car. And my license plate at the time was 50s girl. And the reason that is because I was really, really big into the 50s. I still am in a way, but nowhere near like I used to be. And which is ironic. There was a truck that looked very similar to this. Only it was white. He got in, drove away. I got into my car, and I drove away. So now we're gonna go over to a quiet spot where I can collect my thoughts and share some other occurrences, if you will. Look, there's another one. Okay, I am back with some notes. This is kind of like scattered notations of thoughts that have been on my mind recently while I was in my recording studio, and different things were crossing my mind from the time when I was busking. And I started to realize that I was being watched, whether it was via satellite, or again, did I inhale something when I was in Las Vegas? Did they inject something in me? Is it a spiritual thing? Is it what they call the secret society, or is it the government who put a chip in me when I was in a hospital in 2009? I don't like talking about it, but I would like to speak to private investigators, and I would like to speak to a personal attorney for the possibilities of someone by the name of Stephen C. Johnson having access to something that invades my privacy and gets into my thoughts. He used to live, at least from what he said at the time he was moving, but he was living in Derby, New York. Supposedly a well-respected man, but I see it much differently. All right, now here we go, back to busking. Because I lived in Huber Heights at the time, and I still live in Dayton, while I was out in Las Vegas in 2012, I started to what they call busking, which is playing an instrument, in my situation a guitar, or singing and playing guitar, which is what I done, and wearing a costume, a cat costume. You stand on a street corner somewhere or on the sidewalk in this situation, and you can open up your guitar case and just keep singing and playing. And only time will tell as far as to whether somebody will call the cops and it will be a nuisance to the city. You could possibly have your guitar confiscated from you or be cited, or generosity is going to come your way in some form. Is it going to be a hug? Is it going to be, a relationship of some sort? Is somebody going to contribute some sort of finances to you? Who knows what could have an invitation to something? Anything is possible when you're singing on a sidewalk. Could it be danger? Could it not be dangerous? Could it be one of the most enjoyable days of your life? Could it be one of the most miserable? Because I lived where I lived, I was living in a household, and my guitar playing, obviously I play really hard, and I play acoustic guitar. That would get on the nerves of the people that I was living with, and I totally understand that. Okay? But since losing everything back in 2009 and pretty much being homeless and bouncing around and being dependent on other people, needing to do something with my life, music was therapy for me. And because I couldn't necessarily play in the household the way that I love to play, I ended up realizing that it would be better for me to go onto the sidewalks and busk. So with that being said, what I did is I put together a cat costume, donated by my daddy, of course, and I went out to Cincinnati Fountain Square, Clifton, I went to Oregon District, I also busked in Yellow Springs, and Columbus too, and some other places. Now, we're going to run through these notes because I don't really want to take up any more time. I shared my life story, and some things I shared several times, and posted them on YouTube. And that would be under Tracilyn, that's spelled TRACILYN /messages is what I call it now. It used to be VCat Vblog. It may change again, I don't know. It's unclear. But upon arriving, so here we go. We're going to go down this list of notes. I'm going to share it with you. I could have posted the notes online, and maybe someday I will write like a little fact sheet in regards to this here specifically. I just want to share this information because maybe you are experiencing inner thoughts that some people would say that make you crazy when you talk about it, or maybe you feel like you got a mental problem, or maybe you've been taught that it's Satan getting into your mind. In my situation, I had the opportunity to meet the person that I am claiming is responsible for having some kind of access to getting into my thoughts. Now, is he sending people to me while I'm busking through thoughts, getting into their thoughts? Or is he actually talking to them on the phone or sending emails and having them send messages? Nevertheless, as I share my story, you will find out that the conversations I had with Stephen C. Johnson in Derby, New York, while on his outer porch, if you will, I call it an out porch, made me realize that he does this quite often, and that he's a crook and he loves to play mind games with people's lives. And it's disappointing to me because right now I'm in Dayton, Ohio. I live alone. I have a lot to share about with that. I had to take whatever was given to me because the people behind the system in America are a bunch of assholes. And they like to keep people's life miserable. And because Dayton, Ohio City Council does not have an intelligent city lifestyle code, we who are intelligent got to go through a lot of pain and suffering. And I'm going to explain that in the near future. So we're going to run down the list as fast as we can. We want to keep this video short. I'm already running out of battery. So here we go. Upon arriving to Clifton, Cincinnati, I was met with a gentleman who mentioned about the traffic I was sitting in. And what I'm referring to in that, when I was going down to Cincinnati, my very first time to go busking, I remembered a lot of the things I was talking about along the way. Remember, I talk to myself all the time. And I remember turning up the radio after I had mentioned about being stuck in traffic. I was complaining about it to myself. Now, how did this gentleman know? And it was the way he smiled when he approached me. Like I said, these people were always nice to me. They were not mean. But it's like they were kind of rubbing in my face, letting me know that they hear all the words that I'm saying to myself. Okay, at some point, a group of people mentioned about someone being gay, but wasn't, and reverted back. Now, while I was busking in Cincinnati at Fountain Square, where I met John Bon Jovi, there were these group of people that showed up. And what I've realized when I was busking is that the people Steven was trying to send to me were insistent. They were very insistent. Let me straightforward that I am not a transsexual female and that I am not gay. Okay, and I've explained a lot of that through my videos. Basically, they were trying to force me backwards from being true to my heart. And let me tell you, if you ever had that done, and chances are you have had that done, it's very painful when everybody is against you being true to yourself. They want you to be a worldly self. They don't want you to be true to who you are. So they shared that story, and I just remember the overwhelming feeling, like, why the fuck is everybody ganging up on me? I am who I am. I'm standing right in front of you. Who cares who I'm sleeping with? I don't like to lick stinky pussy. I like cock. Very much so. Why would I want to keep licking stinky pussy for the rest of my life when it's not what I like? I like what I like. I'm not gay. That's the whole thing, is I'm not gay. I'm a human being. At least that's what they tell us. Now, would I do the dirty deeds for somebody I fell in love with? Of course. I'm learning that I would do just about anything to be in a healthy relationship with a masculine energy source who is compatible, and goal in life is to what? Rock and roll with Tracilyn. However you look at it. While I was standing down there at Fountain Square playing right up from where I met John Bon Jovi that I showed in the video, and I'll keep on saying that to piss him off, there was a lady who got right out of a car when I was on a sidewalk, and she had mentioned to me that something like this, very similar to what I was going through, had happened to her. Basically, she mentioned, like, what a poor baby, and the right people will be sent to you. Okay? So evidently she knew. I think she was a book writer. I'm not 100% sure. I'd have to think about it. Okay. Now, when I was busking, I don't know if this was in Yellow Springs or if it was in Dayton or if it was in Cincinnati, but this gentleman had mentioned to me someone who, I guess, I don't know what he wanted with me, some psychopathic person, because why didn't he just pick up the phone and call and talk to me maturely? So anyway, someone who doesn't want someone to want them just for money or what they can do for you, basically. Do you consider this a good man? If he's playing mind games with you and sending you all these people, I don't know. Like, I was thinking to myself a lot of times, like, what kind of psychopath? When I was interested in somebody in a relationship, I either A, picked up the phone and called them, or I drove right over to their house, knocked on the door, and I said, I need to speak to you because I want you in my life. Now, evidently, these people love to play mind games with other people to drive them nuts. Is it because they're attracted to them and they like them? Or is it because they don't like them at all and they just want to frickin' screw up somebody's life? I believe they want to totally screw up my life. And I don't believe they have the power to do that. So, you mentioned someone who doesn't want somebody to want them just for money. Let me tell you something. Anybody who knows me knows I don't want to just be with somebody for money. I have met more rich people, if that's what you want to call them, that were poor. And what I mean by that is they lived sloppy lifestyles. If I had the money that some of these people that I met had money, I'd be taking very good care of myself and have a beautiful home. I take really good care of myself. And a lot of the people I met, they didn't take care of themselves at all. In fact, that was the least important to them. Okay? So I don't want to just be with somebody just for money. What I realize is you got to have compatible interest. And my interest is myself and my music and doing my passions in life. That's pretty much it. And there ain't no way I want to just be with somebody for any reason, you know? Outside of that, I would love to wake up and be with somebody that I really care about. And live life, a good life. So, in my opinion, this Steven or whoever it is can take their money and shove it up their ass. I'm not interested in that. Okay? And we're going to get more into the details of this. While I was in Cincinnati, one of these guys walked up to me and he mentioned, or was it in Yellow Springs, who knows, while I was busking. Because it happened several times. Somebody would walk up to me and they mentioned about someone had broke his heart. So he was evidently with the girl at one time, or somebody, and they used him and then they left him. And this broke his poor little heart. Like none of us have ever been used by somebody, right? Or some of us are intelligent and are aware that somebody's using us and we part our ways. Evidently, he fell for the old scam of being used. But notice this, it's a one-sided story whenever somebody says that. If you were to talk to the other person, they'd probably tell you this psychopath was a psychopath, and that's why they left. So now this psychopath is in denial and will say what? She used me and then she hurt me. No, she didn't. It's a mutual thing. You both screwed up, you shouldn't have been in the relationship together, or there was something to learn in the process of being in that relationship together. Nevertheless, this person, who I believe is Steven, is a psychopath. While I was over in Vandalia, I had shown you where I was just before I went to Las Vegas. And if not, you can review some of my videos. You'll find it eventually. And this gentleman walked up in the middle of nowhere. It was kind of like in a movie, you know, on a sidewalk, who just started to talk. He just showed up. There's nobody on this sidewalk ever. All of a sudden, we're sitting out front, and this person just shows up. And he mentions about Montgomery Gentry, and I don't know if it was Toby Keith or not. I forget who else it was. I'd have to reflect back. And I'm trying to get past this stuff to get more into personal messages that I have for Joyce Myers and Joel Osteen and all the church leaders around America and abroad. I'm looking forward. I have a lot of insight that I want to share because my life got messed up tremendously when I became a viewer of Santa Claus instead of a viewer and student of intelligence. I couldn't make the right choices. My life ended up receiving a lot of pain and suffering, which led me to these psychopaths when I was on the street. I'm looking forward to talking to you, Joyce Myers. Because of your program, my life got pretty sloppy. We're straightening things out now that I'm a student of intelligence. Okay. So now where did this guy come from? Well, let me tell you something. I've been a songwriter for many years, and before coming out as a transsexual female and dealing with that, which was exciting yet filled with all kinds of experiences, I was submitting my music to all kinds of people, publishers. I met Bret Michaels, I gave my CD to him. I was reaching out for people in the music industry because I was working around the clock. There's a lot involved in promotions. Now times have changed a lot. It might be a little bit more relief, but I was working overtime, doing everything myself. And because I desired to play really nice venues, be on tour, and there's so much in this lifetime that you want to fulfill and that you want to accomplish. It's in you for some reason. Well, I have learned that you don't reach out to people like Bret Michaels, and you don't reach out to these publishers and stuff because there's a good chance for me they're all going to be easily intimidated and they're not going to want to help you at all. In fact, they may end up using you and taking from you, whatever that is, whatever it is. I'm not assuming anything to the details yet. Just know that. I am not accusing anyone specifically. I'm just letting you know that I reached out to people that I realize now that I should have never reached out to. And I would tell you, don't reach out to these people with your hard-earned music in hopes that they are going to do anything to help you, because the bottom line is, most of them only care about themselves. They don't give a fuck about us. I mean, how would you feel if you were doing something, whether you were an actress in a movie, maybe lots of movies, and somebody comes along and what they're handing you says what? Wow. To be continued. Let's see. Okay, when I was in Dayton, Ohio, Oregon district, this gentleman walked up to me, and I ended up doing research and looking on this, okay? Mentioned about the Mayans, I think, is that how you say it? And the Lost Island. Did you ever hear of that? I went home and I'd done research on my computer. As soon as I would talk to these people, I would kind of research some things, which I'm going to talk about with this Elvis Jr. asshole. And what I realized is, whether it's real or not, these people have access to changing everything online, so we don't know what's real and what's not. So I looked online and I found out from the information I gathered is at Wikipedia, or what was it, that evidently there was an island at some point and it was filled with different riches and stuff, and these people communicated with their minds. Okay? And with the fact that they communicated with their minds and the place was filled with riches, supposedly this island somehow, was it that it sank into the depths of the ocean? What happened to it? It was a mystery. Now remember, when I was on the streets, they had mentioned to me about this, and I started to realize when they were putting all this together, the fact that when I'm looking in the mirror, they can see into my eyes. In other words, they can see me put on my makeup whenever I'm looking into the mirror. Now, how are they doing that? Is it a chip? Did I inhale something? Are we something much more than we've ever been taught? I realize we're not the outer shell, and I don't believe in death, I believe in transition. I believe we're continually transition. It would be very interesting, I think, and exciting to learn how that all happens. Do we become another human being? I believe from my past stories that I shared that I was once an Indian girl, and then I became a wolf in the next life, and then I became who I am now. And I was born and they told me I was a male and I had to live up to that standard, and I'm not. And then I started learning that I identify more with the female species. Okay? In other words, I'm not that little tiny body part the doctor declared now should be a man. Okay. Now, while I was in the Oregon district specifically, I realized when a gentleman walked up to me what was about to happen to me. He had mentioned about the butterfly. He asked me, have you ever heard of the butterfly effect? In other words, if something happens here, it can send a wave over into Japan. That is when I realized that I'm going to be used as a resource, or that I have been. And you want to talk about a huge letdown? I was taking all this advice through watching these programs, reaching out, because I was never taught how to have healthy and compatible relationships. The assholes behind the system force us to go to school, or they throw our parents in prison, and we'll receive due punishment. But we're never taught about our heart and about who we are, really. We were not taught in school about gender identity. We weren't taught about sexuality. We don't learn these things. I don't know about now. I hope they are. When I'm doing in-depth conversations about stuff like this, my goal is to hurry up and get through it. Understand that I originally wanted to share my life story. I have all different things that I was going to do. But because the way life circumstances kept happening and my life was spiraling out of control, I ended up having to settle with different. So for instance, instead of writing a book about my life story, which I was hoping to turn into a movie someday, because I found it very interesting, ended up becoming a video blog series that I called the Catch-Up series. It was not my intent to hold a camera in my hand for the rest of my life and keep sharing ridiculous shit. My hope was to fucking do music and move forward and do live performances, preferably in beautiful theaters, with backup show people, musicians and stuff. Unfortunately, these people keep tormenting me, and now I'm having problems with YouTube and Facebook blocking my stuff, if you will, on the outbound. Which means they narrowed it down, the possibilities of my music and my art, my videos, being heard by the general public. And if it is possible to sue these people or have it investigated, know that if you are out there investigating YouTube or Facebook for any reason, that I would really appreciate, I can vouch that you can look into my accounts to find out that they evidently have been tampering with it. In other words, I don't have equality when it comes to sharing and uploading my music or my videos. Because if I did, I would have multitudes more people and possibilities in my life coming at me continuously. What I have learned is when you're living in a worldly self, the rest of the world around you don't know who you are. When you start tapping into your heart, that worldly shell starts to disappear, and now you become your truer self. I think the world makes it very impossible for us to be 100% true to our heart. Just like this is ridiculous. These people playing mind games with me continuously, screwing up my every opportunity that I have to experience a beautiful life, beautiful relationships. And I'm convinced that it's because I'm an absolutely beautiful person and I have a big heart. So they use me as a resource. And it made me realize why there's only a select few people in the recording music industry that have been dominant in our minds ever since I was a little kid. And it's because they have access to mind thought, mind control, privacy invasion, you name it. In other words, when somebody creative like myself comes along, they will all gang up on me while they take whatever they want to take for their own gain and personal benefits and their own reasons. If you really knew the truths of the people that you are listening to on the radio, watching on videos, if you really knew their truths, it would make you sick in the stomach. You would most certainly turn it off. And it would do all kinds of crazy things to your mind because you couldn't believe that these are the same people that are very well possibly doing some pretty evil stuff. Now, while I was on busking, they had mentioned to me to think bass player. And what I mean by that is, while I was going home and watching things on YouTube, what I began to realize is this. Somehow, some way on YouTube, when I would talk about things to myself, or I would have encounters like this one specifically I'm telling you about, they would start arranging my YouTube homepage where you can view other people's videos with just kind of like one of those not a jackpot, what is that? A slot machine. You know how, just different videos will come up recommended? Well, all of a sudden, I started seeing Adam the Woo. Okay? And I started realizing that while watching his videos over a long period of time into earlier this year, that's not 2017, that a lot of things that I was talking about would somehow start to appear in his videos. If I talk about something, and I'll get more into that at some point, the more that I would talk about stuff on a regular basis and watch those videos, I started realizing, I started playing with my head in the thought that, are these people taking my ideas when I'm in the privacy of my home or my thoughts, and then they're communicating with him? Are they doing it through mind control, or are they doing it via phone, via email, or whatever? And what I'm realizing is the same thing they're doing to me, they can do to all of us. So then it causes all this confusion where you may think somebody's invading your privacy. Like in my situation, I thought Adam was invading my privacy. Okay? I highly doubt that anybody would give him the ability to invade my privacy. So you got these people who are invading our thoughts, watching me on satellite right now. Who knows what they're doing? And then they're going into the minds of other people, and it's given an illusion. And in my opinion, this is how sometimes people end up hurting other people or doing horrible things, So I talked about that, and the butterfly effect is what I don't know how I jumped over there to Adam, but we'll get back to that. The butterfly effect is that when somebody starts to do something over here, it kind of sends a wave of people starting to do something. Well, when I started to share my music online on YouTube in 2012, when I returned from Las Vegas and I realized my privacy was being invaded and people were monitoring me for whatever reason, I started to realize that maybe not people like Adam, but these other people were somehow taking my information of things I would talk about things to myself out loud all the time, but they were taking information from me, and then it was starting to shine through in other people's careers. One of those things that I realized by that time is, like, I wanted to, when I was living in Huber Heights, the home owner used to invite transgendered people, actually different kinds of people, but a lot of transgendered people into the home to stay there because they needed a place to stay. So he had a big heart. He wanted to help a lot of people. And that was one of my dreams at that time, was to have a home ministry and a rock and roll ministry that kind of educated the general public about transgenderism and how real it is, and to be a part of helping the LGBT community. Well, in the process of that, really short, I was getting my butt kicked while living there because I had no say in anything, and people that were coming in were pretty much brainwashed to believe that I was crazy. And I was going crazy because I was not being able to figure out how I could get things going because I was an idiot, and I started to become influenced and addicted and strung out on watching Joyce Myers and Joel Osteen. And while I was saturating my lives with their teachings, I kept applying their teachings into my life, and long story short, which I'll get into that again, I got my ass kicked by everybody. Okay, I needed to be a student of intelligence, not Joel Osteen, who preaches about Santa Claus. And you don't know that until you apply all of his teachings into your life. I was desperate, I did, and I regret it. But I became a victim to that because you become addicted. You start to fall into agreement with what he's saying. When you fall into agreement with what that man is saying, and you start applying all those teachings into your life, all kinds of crazy things happen. But you never get healthy results. In my conclusion, I didn't get the healthy results. I needed to be a student of intelligence. We're going to talk about that, and I can't wait, because I have a personal message for you, Joel Osteen, and it's going to get to you. Let's see. So then I realized during this process that all of a sudden Miley Cyrus was putting together, I don't know exactly the details, because when I hear stuff like that, I just kind of back away from it, because I started to realize at that point that everything that I was talking about, that I wanted to do and desired to do and was in the process of doing, and it coming forth, I was putting word out there on my Facebook. Now all of a sudden Miley Cyrus is doing things for the transgender community right when I stepped out there and started to do it. It's like my sensation was they were taking all my insight through the years of my being exposed and going through my life journey. They were taking all of my ideas and stuff and applying it into these other careers of these other people. Too many of them to list. In other words, I was being used to feast off as a resource, because I am extremely intelligent, and all the things I used to talk about in the privacy of my home and do in my music was being taken, being used. Just like the big band music, other people have done big band music. But I was really big on reinventing rock and roll in a different way. Okay? Because I get sick of hearing the same mundane style of music. It's just in me. I just feel that way. I'm sure a lot of people do. So I wanted to reinvent it. I'm big into the 50s. I was back then huge into the 50s. Wanted to do big band. All of a sudden, these recording artists, these national recording artists, are starting to do all this big band stuff. That's when I started to realize, whether you want to believe it or not, I heard a couple of the songs off the album, and I could go get it and read it out. But somebody like John Bon Jovi, who all of a sudden my little tiny ragtop Cadillac that was on my Facebook page, as early as, 2010, 2011, I think it was, all of a sudden now becomes a stage prop. And there's so many details with it. And now, does this upset me? To you, you might laugh and say, what's the big deal? It is a big deal because it's my life. I was being used as a resource by posting. When I would post stuff on Facebook, or I would talk about things in the privacy of my home, and I'm trying to get things together. In other words, people were taking what it was that I was doing at some extent, maybe not directly using it exactly the way that it was, because that would be copyright infringement, trademark infringement, and all of a sudden, they're going out and they're doing. In other words, they're feeding off of me for inspiration. Okay, and in my opinion, that's what a lot of corporations do. They take as a resource from the earth and they don't put back into it. And that's why a lot of people get upset when you consider it that way. It's destroying the earth in some form. It's at least injuring her a little bit. Okay. Now, when I was in Yellow Springs, it mentioned that somebody came up to me and mentioned, wouldn't I like to be with someone that likes to cook? And I can be me and pretty much go out and do my busking or whatever it is that I want to do. And then I have someone to go home to. And my exact words were, I would rather be in a relationship with somebody that because of our attraction to one another and compatibility, which I've only come to realize, is it would take me away from being on the streets. Now that can mean many different things. But who wants to be with somebody in a relationship when you're not satisfied and your heart is saying, I long to do different? Why would you want to be with somebody who is okay? It's just like when I was going through my transitional journey. Okay? And so when I met a lot of guys, they would be like, I don't care what's between your legs, where I did. And it's not that I want my personal matters for other people to matter, but it's kind of like you step back away from that. I'm getting readjusted, so I have different opinions about things. The longer you go through life and challenges, you start to have different opinions about that. And I'll get more into that as well. You know? Oh, I met this guy in a suit and tie out in Cincinnati, Fountain Square. I don't know if he worked at a record company or whatever, but he had, I guess, young kids from Cincinnati that were overseas on tour and stuff like that. I think he worked as, in a record company or whatever in Cincinnati. Nevertheless, he was always nice. He dressed very nice. And he approached me, and he would ask me to sing or whatever. And I gotta say that I never really encountered a lot of the stuff I did when I was busking. So you have moments like that are. Okay? And the bottom line is, he sends me an email later on, and I wish I would have kept it, but I delete stuff like that. Don't have no interest. My recommendation is save every email that you get. Save as much as you can. Save as much as you can. Put them in files. Tuck them away. If it mentally disturbs you, tuck them away, far away, until a time you feel that you can deal with it. I deleted stuff like that. But basically, he showed me this guy, and I'll have to look it up then. But this guy that pretty much was tied in somehow to Willie Nelson. He was a songwriter or whatever, and, was it Poco or something like that he wrote? I guess he had some kind of mental problem, so he spent a lot of time singing in, houses and stuff. Just his acoustic guitar and singing songs. And I saw that and the video, and he basically told me I was going to be like him. Well, I'm nothing like him. I was dealing with a lot of stuff that I'd been through in my life. And I refuse to be like that. I've been working very hard through a lot of depression, and my behavior as far as being bipolar stems from circumstances because of our country leaders who are assholes and make laws that make it so difficult for one to even breathe. Because of our corporations who are toxating all the food and all the things that we use on our bodies and not giving us a heads up about it. And we are not pushing forward to make these people submit to the fact that in our natural state, we need natural resources, not a whole bunch of chemicals that are toxating our bodies and our minds. So the bottom line is, gotta remember, these people keep pushing to tell you who you are, and it's none of their damn business. I already did way more than that. He had no idea who he was talking to. I had accomplished a lot up to that point. No, I will not just be sitting around and doing that, because I'll be busy holding this camera every day and telling Joyce Myers that I think that her whole ministry should be shut down. I'll do that every day. But I'm not going to sit around in a house and just play my guitar, okay? I'll take trips down to Lakewood, and I'll pick it out front there and insist that they close the church down. But I will not sit in an apartment and only play guitar. We're going to talk more into the details about that. Okay, so I was talking big about the big band sound. I was influenced, I got to be completely honest, with the likes of people like Brian Setzer. I love his style and his music. I don't play the same, but I like that sound. I'm influenced by the big band and the 50s sound. So I love Elvis Presley. I love Elvis Presley a lot. What was done through him. I think his son is an asshole, is what I think. If it is his son. Is it his son? Do you believe that Elvis Jr. is truly the son of Elvis Presley? If he is or if he's not, I believe he's an asshole. And I'm going to tell you why I believe that in a little bit. Okay. So anyway, I had a released music that was recorded by myself and a gentleman by the name of Andrew C. Strauss, who used to be in a band called Messiah Prophet back in the 80s, a Christian rock band. Some may say heavy metal. We worked on some music together, some music projects together, and anyway, I released the soundtrack with myself in a video called Tracilyn Pump It. And I was basically on a treadmill in a cute little skirt, and I was doing all kinds of little cute things, working out, doing exercises. It was a very sophisticated art piece to me. Well, a video like that, when you release it in a public, you get a lot of views, a lot of people interested in seeing that. Well, there was a lot of instrumentation that was done that was kind of orchestrated and big sound, mainly strings and stuff, violins and things. Not that this stuff has not already been done, but it was around these times that I started realizing, whoa, all of a sudden all these bands and stuff, they're doing big shows, and you know, this sound that I've been talking about to other people was starting to become very quickly. So you can only imagine how I felt in the process of this. Like, I know people are invading my privacy. I'm putting stuff out there. My heart means well in the fact that I just want to have fun and enjoy my life. I was reading books online. So my aim and my goal was to entertain children. Because that's what I love a lot. Because of our assholes behind the system, I couldn't have a direct relationship with my own son. Number one, life happens. Number two, they make it damn near next to impossible for, so when somebody has a child with somebody else, when that person insists that you can't be in that child's life, you got to go through all kinds of legal stuff. And I don't want to get into that right now, but, you know, around the whole entire country, people who have kids and are paying child support, I'm talking about you, you need to start fighting and arguing over the fact that You should not have to legally pay child support for a child that its other parent who is receiving that child support is refusing to let you see. You should not even have to fight for it. Because the child is from both of you, you should have equal custody. Period. End of story. And your finances should go into an account for that kid, and it should all be documented, and the person who's paying the child support should have access to seeing all the receipts, every little detail of what's being paid for that child. None of it can be used by its mother, its dad, whoever is receiving the child support on the behalf of the child. We're going to get into that, because I'm going to start making phone calls to backtrack and find out. And if my kid is out there and he ever does see my videos, know that I really do want a relationship with you. And I hope that our school systems didn't screw up your brain. I hope Donald Trump, the president, didn't screw up your brain. I hope our government didn't screw up your brain, because I love you. I don't even know if you're mine, but I always wanted a child in my life. And your mother, to me, I hope not to you, was an asshole. And because our assholes behind this system make it very, very difficult, the best thing that I could do for everyone was walk away. I'm here now, and I hope I can have the opportunity to speak to you privately. May the government mind their own fucking business when that happens. And I'm a little sarcastic with Donald Trump, because I'm under the impression that when he was running the presidency, whether knowingly or unknowingly, he was using my life story to win favoritism for the masses of people. You may think that's crazy, but that's okay. Why would it be crazy that somebody is intelligent, who's superior intelligent because of all the things they experience and witness in their life? How could it not be true that that person is being used as a resource to win favoritism of other people? Did you ever wonder how a select few people are rich in this world, like really wealthy, and pretty much everybody else is in poverty? Did you ever think that they may actually have access to dumbing people down and getting into their thoughts? People who are intelligent and are aware, and trying to keeping them oppressed? Now, I don't know if it's true or not, but from what I viewed, every now and again, it at least appeared that he was using my life story. I could be wrong, okay? I could be wrong, but something tells me a man at his age does not connect with people that are like my age or younger all that well. And how that is I met lots of people who were much older, and guess what? There isn't a connection, really. So they have to be gathering this information somehow. If your agenda is to win a presidential election, you're going to, have teams of people going out to try to find as much information on what's going to be presented to the masses to win the favoritism of people. Just listen to my life story. Listen to a lot of the things and see if it doesn't start to add up in the fact that, you know what? Maybe they were, maybe they weren't. Or maybe my life story inspired them because of things they were witnessing and going through throughout their life. Let's just be honest. It could be. I can only show a few of the videos from what I uploaded in 2012, 2013. At that time, I was kind of believing that this probably happens like every, election or so. Maybe they say every 10 years. It's something boils up out of the human race. Somebody with a whole lot of ideas, a whole lot of things going on in their head, and all of a sudden that person is used as a resource. And they love to get them when they're alone. And if they're not alone, they like to get them that way. Makes it easy to prey on. Okay. Talk about while I was down there in the Oregon District, I would talk about a few things. I'm just going to run this by you. Bon Jovi was my favorite band in my teen years. I discussed all of that. And I'm upset because as years go by, your interest in a lot of things begin to change. So what was in my teen years is not in these years. I've always respected him because I thought he was a songwriter and a great front person and music business person. So as somebody who has done a lot of similar things, some people would say on a smaller scale, I just say period, just doing it, you have an admiration and respect for somebody who's known to be really good at what they do. Well, I have learned the hard way that this will draw the person, like I said, to your face. Now, who knows how this person has still been around and still connects also with the human race, except for what? Getting insight and information out of people to write songs that the human race can connect with. That's it. I mean, that's what writers do, right? They look for inspiration and away it goes. Now, I'm not saying that I was anybody's inspiration, but in my opinion, that's what was happening to me as I was being used as a resource. And I can show you the images and stuff, and you can decide. Oh, now this I don't think it had anything to do with them, but pretty much there was a girl that came up to me, and we were talking. I was talking to somebody, and they mentioned they were kind of going through similar things, but basically mentioned that I left him, and since she kept going back to him, and basically there was mental abuse. So I kept returning back to the home that I was at, and I'm going to talk about that. I was under the influence and kind of in a trance from listening to Joyce Meyer's ministry. I got involved into her teachings. I was addicted to her videos, to reading her books. I believe she had all the answers. Maybe not all the answers, but I believe there were answers, and that she was intelligent. And as I was receiving these messages, I was applying them in my life. It was a great state of confusion. And let me tell you, I can't wait to get to the point of sharing you. I'm going to put caution out there for anybody. Don't fall into agreement, not just with Joyce Myers or Joel Osteen. Don't fall into agreement with anyone. Be aware. Some of what they're saying may work for you. Some of it may be true. But no one person knows all the answers. There are basic principles to apply in life. And in my opinion, a ministry like that should legally have to put warning out to the viewers that this is merely entertainment and a person's idea or view, perspective of God's Word. That way the person viewing is aware, you know what, I've never been told that. I just turn on the television, I hear this old lady talking about God, and I think she got onto television, so she must know what she's talking about. Look at all the other people applauding for her. I'm here to tell you, I wonder how many people committed suicide because they watched her television show. How many people got killed because they watched her television show? How many people are in suffering every day because they watch her show and keep applying her teachings into their life without getting healthy results? And I'll share with you the details before you get too excited about it. I can share with you the details on you want to be a student, I want to be a student of intelligence. You need intelligence. That's how you get away from trying things that people are talking about, and you get what? In worse circumstances? Intelligence will start to straighten things out. It will take some time, depending on how out of alignment things got. I'm looking forward to sharing you a message. Actually, I'm looking forward to sending a message to LCBC, to Dave Ashcraft, for many different reasons, because that's the church where all this started. And in my opinion, there should be warnings in mega churches all around America letting people know that what? This is their idea of Scripture. And also because we're all living in a worldly shell, all of us. They should have what? Psychologist on hand. Because that's what we all do need. And the reason I'm saying that is we all went through American public school system. Our heads are messed up already. A lot of our political stuff that gets put onto the internet, whether it's because they're putting it out there or because other people are putting it out there, however you look at it, is messing up our heads. Because a lot of the music and the videos and the movies and the televisions and all of that stuff, including other things that come out of me and my messages, it has the potential, a high potential of messing up our brains. The dominant reason is to take us off focus and to keep us arguing and fighting with each other. Instead of drawing the human race together, more so or not, we're all ending up alone in this world. If I would have been a student of intelligence instead of Joyce Myers, I don't know for sure. We'll find out in the next 5 or 10 years, but I would at least start moving closer towards healthier relationships instead of having my ass kicked on a regular basis. Okay, mention I left him since he... Okay. North and South Carolina news reporter guy in women's clothing on a... what? Unicycle! Okay, really quick, we gotta speed this up. This is gonna have to be divided up. Okay, so here's the thing. I went to the chiropractor a little while back because I was involved in a car accident, unfortunately. And I often regard that I wouldn't have been in that car accident if I would have been a student of intelligence years ago instead of trusting Santa Claus with my life. You know, I made a lot of choices based off of the programming I was watching. And I can take responsibility for it now. I couldn't then. I became a victim. Okay, and I'm still receiving consequences for that. Penalty for that. I made a lot of choices based off of watching Joyce Myers. And, you know, my story that I could share to you out here is bizarre. Things that never happened to me in all of my life. Still going through it. It's amazing. We're working it out. Now, here's the thing. While going to the chiropractor for this automobile accident, I noticed for some reason it appeared this team of secret society Illuminati, who's a bunch of assholes, by the way, all of you, likes to throw little signs in front of you every once in a while, whether it be on cars or license plates, or they try to, they're trying to play God with your frickin' life, okay? It's a psychological BS game that they do to try to fish you wherever direction they want. And to trust this, it's usually in opposition of who you are, is what I've realized, which stresses you out. Instead of you going in a direction that makes sense to your level of intelligence, they want to keep pushing you backwards. It's always opposite of what you want, which is in your heart. Everybody wants what's in their heart. Now here's the thing. So I get out of my chiropractor's office, and beside my car is license plates, both, on either side in the parking lot, all with Florida on it. Now, was this from the chiropractors? I highly doubt it. Why would people from Florida, and there are people who do, but it would make you think, like, why would all these people from Florida be coming up here to the chiropractor? Who knows? Are they visiting somebody or whatever? So I just had signs. At that time it wasn't 100% clear, but I thought maybe I should go down to Florida. And one of those things is when I got out of Las Vegas and I started going on the road to think about things, when I was in New Jersey playing my guitar at a park, a really nice man crossed paths with me. Now, eventually we will talk about that, and I may have talked about it. But in short, this has taken a lot longer than I wanted it to. In short, when I was staying at this hotel room in New Jersey, I walked out my door one day, and these people were conveniently fishing by the stream. And in their conversation, what I got out of it, I ended up eventually visiting the person in New Jersey. And we talked. Evidently, he was friends of either Doc McGee or John Bon Jovi or somebody within that, but I think it was Doc McGee or something like that, who was at least supposedly John Bon Jovi's tour manager or whatever. For a lot of people, actually. But we got in conversations with that. Then when I got over, and I'm giving you spurts for reasons, you'll find out. Notice everything that I'm talking about, though it's scrambled up. Then I went to a park when I got up in Clifton, New Jersey, just on the other side of New York. And this gentleman had sent me an email, and that email is one that I wish that I had, but it had a picture in, and basically he tried to show me who I was going to meet down, he called it, when he was speaking, it's going to be southwest of New Jersey. Okay. So I'm thinking, and he said he's going to be like a lawyer type person. Okay. So here's the thing. So when I'm at this chiropractor, I guess psychologically all this stuff is in my head and I'm influenced. I go down to Florida. Okay, we don't want to talk about that too much. But while I was there, it became very relevant to me. Somehow, somebody had mentioned to me that the Truman Show, with Jim Carrey in it, was, scenes from it at least, were done over not too far from where I was. And it was suggested to me that I go check it out. And what I realized at that point, this is when I started to realize I'm being watched right now, that if you watch that show, The Truman Show, it's pretty much what we go through. It's interesting, isn't it? It's like this planet is pretty much a stage of some sort, and somebody's playing God with her life. And you think to yourself, imagine if it was somebody who was for you instead of against you. These people are warped. I seen it with my own eyes. A man who stumbled down the stairs as quickly as he can, spilling coffee all over the floor, anxious to get behind his computer. And the thing is he loves to play with people's minds. That's so sad. On my way down to Florida, I did some busking. It was in North or South Carolina, at a famous city where a lot of people go busking. And I realized that there was this guy. Was it a girl? Please forgive me. We're all at different spectrums in the world. But, see, I identify as female. I'm a transsexual female. I believe that, my belief is that we're not anything that we've been taught that we are. We've been kind of tricked, and we have abilities with our minds and stuff that are amazing, and we're being kind of kept from our abilities by lack of intelligence and our focus being taken off into other things, that their agendas versus – what we're really about. So this guy came by, and what I realized is they kept trying to get me to be very plain. Even though I do dress pretty casual, a lot of times jeans and a top. I love to wear dresses and skirts and bathing suits, you name it. I just love to, why? We're here to live. Jesus Christ came to this earth and died so that we can have life. And we have the closer to living in our heart, rather than a worldly shell or a worldly idea of life, we experience more enjoyment, and we do experience a little bit more freedom, but we also are faced with obstacles that we would never face if we were submissive, or submissive to a worldly taught idea of how we should be living our life. In other words, at any time that you walk into somebody's presence and you're their idea of what a human being should be, you're going to receive what? Acceptance. The second you are not their idea of a human being, you are going to what? Be rejected. This is why our school system fails to educate us properly, or did back in my day. They don't want us to accept each other. They want us to fist fight each other, which is stupid. But not to them. Not to the people who hold the riches of the earth. Right? How do you think they get it? All of us people, and they get all the riches of the earth? You know how easy it would be to take all of that back? People just have to acknowledge what's going on. That's it. How do you feel that the small percentage of people are actually holding everything that belongs to you? How do you feel about that? What are they doing with it anyway? They're just holding it. They can't possibly use everything. You ever hear the story of some people have so much money that they couldn't spend it in 5 lifetimes? It would be impossible. So what's the importance of them having so much? Are they addicted to it? I gotta change this over quick.